a real environment, food chains, they don't give you like a real perspective or like a real accurate view of what's happening there. Food webs do. And that's why we're doing food webs instead this week. Um, and the last two, populations, we said that populations are all members of a single species that live in an area. Communities are composed of many different populations, right? So when you do your and assign them to the objects, that's one picture. The other picture is the one about principles of biology and the interdependence of living things, which I think most of you did an amazing job in VR with that. And we were in an open space for this one. And you had to create food chains and identify the four principles of biology: evolution, cell theory, gene theory, all of that, and how you connected that to your ecosystem. And then the interdependence of living things was just adding other things that they needed to survive that were not necessarily living things. So that's a separate picture. So you're going to submit a picture for each one. If you worked with a partner or in groups of three, which I usually don't allow, but if I allow you to work in a group of three for any reason, then you have to submit a selfie and the clear picture of your work. And the reason why I'm doing this is because some people are walking around, they don't do anything, and they just walk around and take pictures of work that other people did and submit it. So to avoid that, you have to take a selfie with your team members. So that way, if I check your submission and I see that you're not submitting a selfie, and then I see your work again in another submission, and these two other people submitted a selfie in the picture, I'll know that they're taking credit for the work you did. So make sure you submit that. If you say, no, I worked with I don't know, with Ian, but I forgot to take the picture and then Ian submitting an individual picture, I'm not going to give you the points for that because it looks like he works independently. Each activity is 5 points. That means if you did the first one, you get the 5 points. If you did the second one, you get those 5 points. If you did one and not the other, then you get 5 out of 10. Okay. And again, for those of you who are new, it's not just participation points. You have to do it. You have to do it correctly. And that's why I'm there to give you feedback. So I can, before you submit, you can double check that your work is done correctly and you can get full credit. Because if you submit an assignment that's half, like it's not completely correct, then out of you're gonna get like 2.5 or 3 points out of 5. Um, and your picture, everybody, please, your picture has to be clear. Double check. If you open the picture and you cannot read the sticky notes or what you added there, or the eye effects are not easy to identify, then I won't be able to read it either because you were the one with the idea. You may be able to be like, oh yeah, this was the fish I added there, and then I said this thing, but I don't know. I don't remember. Remember, I have 100 students. I don't remember like specifically what you did until I look at your picture. Sometimes I do. If you do something very, very specific, or if I had a specific conversation with you about that, then I'll remember. But just to make sure. And um, the other thing, if you make something too big, because I know some people were like, oh, my creation is way too big. I cannot fit all of that in one picture. Then you take sections and you can submit 4 pictures. That's fine. I don't mind as long as I can really see your work. Okay. So that's from last week. So you're not going to submit what we did yesterday or on Monday here. This is all from last week. So here, you have the assignments we're going to do this week. And if I go to your modules, you're going to see, um, We're here. So you have to follow this sequence. If you just go to assignments, it's going to be confusing for you. You have to click on modules and follow the sequence. So for this week, the first thing you do is you're going to read the material 2.01. Once you're done reading this, you do the notebook activity for 2.01. Then you do the application assignment for 2.01, and then you take the reading quiz for 2.01. If you read this can be super easy. Then you're going to do 2.05. We're going to read about food chains and food webs. You're going to do the application assignment. We're not doing this too because most of you showed me this in class in VR. So there will be some assignments I'm going to skip because you're already showing me your knowledge in VR. So why would I give you more things to do? And then you have your reading quiz for 2.05. These quizzes are short, they're just 5 questions. And it's about the reading you did. Okay. Any questions so far? No? Okay. I believe I have to edit this. Let me do that really quick. And these are simple assignments. Just make sure you read them carefully. If I'm asking you to label them because you're gonna lose points for not following those instructions. If you just draw the food web and there's no labels and you don't have at least 7 organisms and you don't answer these questions about the keystone species and the trophic cascade, you will get points deducted. Okay, so make sure you read the instructions, you do the assignment, and then you double check. Let me edit this so you can submit it now. So today, since yesterday was a little bit crazy in there, and I talk about expectations, and some people didn't follow those expectations. I'm sorry for those of you who did follow the expectations because there's a lot of people here who were following, doing what they were supposed to do. But we cannot have that, like for example, you build a lot of things and just because a few students were adding a bunch of IFX, we had to leave, like it kicks us out, like all of us. And some people, it feels like they just wasted their time because they were building things that disappear. And that's not fair. So what we're going to do today, we're going to go over all of the concepts. You're going to take your notes and use those notes for these assignments you're expected to do this week. I'm going to say you can do all of these assignments in VR if you want. Just make sure you take a picture and submit it. You don't have to draw if you don't like to draw. You can just do it in VR the way we've been building stuff in there, okay, for food webs and food chains. So we're going to take a break from VR today, and tomorrow we're going to try to be in VR and do the activity I have planned for us. And if it happens again, we're gonna come back to Teams and then probably for 2 days or something, like for next Monday as well. So it depends on the class. Not all of my classes are doing Teams, but the ones that can handle it because it's just I had students frustrated because their work got deleted. And I told them I was not going to do VR today because of that. So if they're your friends, tell them not to do that so we can be in there and can build because I know most of you want to be in VR. Okay, so but this is helpful anyway. So I'm gonna show you what you're going to do today. I'm gonna share a link with you all. This link is for notes. That means, and everybody listen up, you're not going to have my presentation available. You have to take notes now, right now, or we go over these terms and these concepts. So I'm going to share my screen so you can do it with me. I just shared a link with you. You're going to click on that link. Once you click on it, you're going to see something like this. You need a Google account. So I'm going to give you time to create it if you don't have one. You're going to click sign in. enter your credentials, your email, your password if you don't have that already. And then you're going to click File, make a copy, and you're going to be able to type on the document. If you don't make a copy, it won't allow you to type because I don't want people editing my document. So you have to make a copy to use it. So you see right now, if you try to type, there's nothing you can do. You have to click File and make a copy. So I'm going to give you time to do that now. Once you're done, put the little raise hand here, um, the little icon, so I know you finished it, okay? Okay, good. Awesome, Chess. Peyton, Anne, good. Matthew, awesome. Okay, so everybody, this file again won't be available for you. Won't be available for you in Canvas because it's a big file. We're gonna cover this slowly in class. Okay, so we're not gonna do. You're gonna notice you have a lot of pages. We're not gonna do all of that today. Like there's no way. So we're going to do some concepts together and then come back to these later. Okay. So everybody click on, you're gonna see like you have 16 pages. We're not doing all of that today. Click on that link, click on sign in, enter your credentials, and you're gonna click on files, make a copy. Hi, this link. I'm gonna So you're going to click on that link and again, log in, sign in and click file, make a copy and you'll be able to type, okay? What do you mean it's not there? Do you join late? So everybody, I'm going to start because we're not going to have enough time if I don't start now. I'm going to share my presentation here. You're not going to submit this right now. You're going to submit it once we're done with everything. So make sure you know where your document is. This will autosave your work because it's a Google document. It will autosave your work, so you don't have to save it anywhere. But some people then forget where their document is. So you can just click on the little star here and save it for later, okay? Which no, I'm gonna do. So you're gonna see that with this pack, it's easier for you to take notes than trying to figure out what's important from the presentation. So if you click on the boxes, you can easily type the information. Okay, you have to sign in with your own Google account. So everybody, if you have it ready, we're going to start with Benkai, you can create one, okay? You can create one account in Gmail if you don't know yours. If for any reason you didn't see one word or something, you can come see me during office hours and I'll show you the presentation and you can finish that. But obviously try your best to take all of your notes. If I'm moving too fast, which I may, and it's not on purpose, just put in the comments, can you go back, or I'm still writing, give me 1 minute or something, and that way I know. So we've been talking about ecology all this time, but there is a lot of confusion with community and ecosystem, populations and community, biotic, abiotic factors. So we're going to go over this, and I need you to have this because when I ask you to build something and I'm going to use the vocab, I'm not going to say add living things. I'm going to say add biotic things. Or if I ask you in your quiz, give me an example of 3 non-living things. I'm not going to say non-living. I'm going to say abiotic. I'm not going to say a group of the same species. I'm going to say a population. So it's good for you to have this so you can refer back to it. Even when I ask you to do something on your assignments, you can just easily look at it. Okay, what's the population? It says species, of 2 or more organisms of the same species here. What's an organism? Because also I saw that a lot of people were confused with the words organism, organelle, organ. And I know it sounds very similar, but the organ is like a hard brain or bone. Organism is one individual. So I am an organism. A dog, one dog is an organism. And organelle are the organs of the cell, like the mitochondria, the nucleus. All the little parts of the cell are called the organelles. So I saw some people confused and they were putting like the heart under the organism label or under the organelle label. So I just wanted to clarify that when you go in there and do the assignment you didn't get to finish yesterday. Okay. So we're going to start with the first definition, which is what ecology is. Make sure you have this from the presentation. So the first one is the definition of ecology. And ecology, and I think I haven't mentioned this before, is the study of the interactions between all organisms and the environment. Remember, we're not just looking at the living things in the environment, we're looking at that and the non-living. So all interactions. How does the cow interact with the grass and the climate and water and the mountains? It's like all those interactions. So in ecology, what we're looking at and what we're studying, you're going to see that we will never focus on just one organism. We're going to look at the different groups of organisms, which we call populations, right? We call them population. You know if I'm moving too fast, okay? Yes, Carter, I think you're the one raising your hand. No, Chess. Do you have a question? Okay, then move on, okay? Um, so Kai, if you need to create an account and all of that, come see me during office hours, okay? So the next one, we're on page 1 still. Ecology is the study of interactions between organisms and the environment. Now we're gonna look at a couple of pictures here, and I'm gonna ask you to tell me, it can be in the chat, it can be, you can unmute yourself and tell me some abiotic and biotic factors that you see in this picture. Okay. So we have this little lake here. We have another picture and we have another picture here. So if we are studying the interactions that exist between living and non-living things, components of the environments, what are some non-living things? So abiotic factors that you see in these 3 pictures. What are some abiotic factors? Do we know what abiotic factors are? No. The grass. So abiotic, if it has the A at the beginning, will be non-living things. So what are some of the abiotic factors that we have here? The grass will be biotic, right? From biology, living things. The mountain, right? The mountain is a non-living thing, so abiotic, right? What else? Now the mountain, the rocks, yes. What else? Even think about the things you don't see in the pictures that exist and are non-living. At mountains, we have the rocks, water, yes. Also, think about the air, the oxygen in the environment, the air, the chemicals in water, the pH in water, the soil. Now, what are some biotic factors? What are some biotic factors? Remember what biotic means? What are some biotic factors? The grass, the animals, grass and trees. Yes. The bird. Hmm. And maybe you're not thinking about this, but also bacteria is everywhere, right? Bacteria is alive. Those are living things. So bacteria will be considered another biotic factor. So you can add that in your food chain anytime. You can add that in your assignments because that's everywhere. So bacteria will be one. And we're going to now talk about levels of organization. That's what we did yesterday, right? So these actions, they occur, these interactions, sorry, they occur on many levels from the smallest thing all the way to the what includes all living things. And yesterday we talked about the smallest level, which was atom, but in ecology, the smallest or the lower level is the organism, which is the individual. Um, to a global level, which is the biosphere. It's a globe, it includes everything. And just a little bit of history before, like years and years ago, all the scientists, like biologists and ecologists and scientists who work with natural things, they were all called naturalists. And then they started like separating those branches because they were studying different things. And this German biologist was the first one who started the field of ecology in 1866. So again, we go from in ecology from the organism level to the global level or biosphere level. So, and we're going to skip everybody. Look at this. We're not going to do climate today or this week at all. We're going to do that later. So we're going to move on your Google Docs. We're going to do page 6 now. Page 6. Um, we're going to do page 6, which is levels of ecological organization, which is what we were doing. Yes, Kai, just make sure you visit me during office hours. Because I need to keep moving, okay? So We have the levels of organization. You tell me all. You should be experts now because I've been asking you to do this since last week. What are the levels of organization? By the way, those of you who are answering, I have a little chart here where I add students who participate because they're showing me that you understand. So if we do an assignment related to the topic and you missed some points in that assignment, but you were answering in class, you get the points because you were showing that mastery of the topic. So I'm gonna add those points for you. So those of you who are answering all of my questions, you're getting those points. Um, but anyways, if you don't remember what we did yesterday we were talking about levels of organization. And these are the ones that um, scientists look at to kind of understand the interactions. So there's an order to it. And each level has unique properties, which we're going to define later because people are getting confused with those terms. And with that, we can study their interactions for specific levels. So the first one in ecology. So we did um, from atoms to molecules, from molecules to organelles, from organelles to cells, from cells to tissues, tissues to organs, organs to organ systems to individuals or organism to population, population to communities, communities to ecosystem, ecosystems to biosphere. Now, that's for biology and the whole thing. For ecology, we're going to focus on those five: organism to biosphere. Organisms um, are what create a population. A lot of populations create communities, a lot of communities, an ecosystem, and the ecosystems, the biosphere. So we're going to define one by one now. So make sure you take notes of this. You have a lot of information to type for this one. So follow the document, okay? So the biosphere is the biggest level. It includes all of the other levels, okay? So it includes communities, ecosystem, populations, individuals, and biomes, which we're going to talk about later. And the biosphere contains the combined portions of the planet where all life exists. And that includes not only the living things, but also the non living, like you were mentioning before: land, water, air. All those things are part of the biosphere. All the organisms are found here. If I ask you, what can we find in the biosphere? Can we find water? Yes. Can we find bacteria? Yes. All the living things? Yes. So that's why when you're creating your levels of organization, you have to include the biosphere because all living things are there. And it extends 5 to 6 miles above the Earth's surface and to the deepest parts of the ocean. So that means I don't know if you ever watched a documentary of the deep ocean. Those fish that are um, different because they don't need a lot of things that are required to live in the surface. For example, most of them don't have eyes because why would you have eyes if to see if the space is dark? You don't need eyes. So you have something that can detect light. We have bacteria and tiny organisms down there that live in the hydrothermal vents that are things that release some toxic chemicals, and they feed on that. They feed on toxic chemicals. So um, from the atmosphere all the way to the deepest part of the ocean, that is all the biosphere. It includes all living things. And most organisms are found within a few meters of the surface of the land or the ocean. So we don't have a lot of things outside of that range. Okay. Okay. Everybody, I'm moving on because nobody's saying anything. In my other class, they were asking me to stop and go back, but I assume you're good, okay, with my pace. So now we're going to define all of them. Ecosystem. Ecosystem is composed of, well, the biosphere is composed of smaller units called ecosystems. And an ecosystem is a collection of all the organisms that live in a specific place, together with the non-living and or physical factors in the environment. Okay, so the ecosystem, again, I saw people getting confused with ecosystems and communities. The ecosystem includes living and non-living things. Communities don't. Communities is only living things. Okay, can I move on? Exactly. Yeah. Well, exactly. In this, yeah, in its own area. So that's why yesterday you were building the ecosystem for your specific organism, and you had to include um all the living factors that interact with it. So you had to add other living species, other animals, other fish, and you also had to include like rocks and stuff like that that were not living. Okay. So now an example will be this pond ecosystem. What living organisms you think live in this ecosystem, in the pond ecosystem? What living organisms do you think live here? Let's see. Let me go get pencil for my nose. The frogs, yes, usually frogs, bugs, yeah, definitely, definitely. What else? Bacteria, yes, there is a lot of it in this environment. Dogs, yeah, Christopher. What else? Fish, probably, right? Insects, swarms, yeah. Birds, plants too. Algae. Algae is one of the living things that we find there. Amphibians like frogs, birds. Protists. Protists are um, simple cell organisms, so they are found in there. So usually when teachers collect samples of, they want to show their students a simple cell, they go like I've done it before. You go to any lake, take a sample, make microscope slides with it, and they can see them moving and swimming, all those living organisms. um Now tell me some abiotic factors that you think exist in this ecosystem. Really, really bad, and it's going to make the water toxic for the other species that live in water. Um, Also, if we have a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus, some algae feed on those high levels of nitrogen and phosphorus. So if the algae feeds on that and you're adding too much, what do you think is going to happen with that population? They are going to duplicate. They're going to grow and expand. And if they do that, they're going to grow on the surface of the lake. So it's going to prevent the sunlight to pass through the water, and the organisms that live below surface are not going to have access to sunlight. And that creates an issue. They're going to die. So you see how everything is interconnected. So it's not just the living things that affect the organism, it's also all these other things that I just mentioned. The level of oxygen, pH levels. pH levels is how acidic the water is. If the water is too acidic, it's going to kill the animals that live there. If it's too basic, it's going to kill those animals as well. So all those things affect life in the ecosystem. Then we have communities. So communities, everybody, is all the living organisms found in a particular area, and you have two or more different populations. Okay, so two or more different species. So a community may contain thousands of species, may contain two or three. And when scientists study communities, they study the interactions between the living organisms in that specific area. So in the pond ecosystem that we use, they study the interactions between the fish, the insects, the plants, the algae, protists, amphibians, all of those. Okay, they don't study the interactions between the living things and the non-living things. They only study the interactions between the species, right? Like the older one, the younger, the babies, the mom, all of that. And communities are composed of many different populations. So now you know the language. So if I ask you, hey, please create an ecosystem, I'm going to assume that you know that includes communities and populations and non-living things, okay? So we are on page we're on page 7. Organism is not an organ, it's not an organelle, is one individual. It's the simplest level of organization in ecology. And a scientist who studies organisms, he's going to concentrate on the adaptations that allow that specific organism to overcome the challenges of their environment. So how do they deal with low levels of pH, for example, if they're in the ocean? Or in this case, how does it deal with the absence of prey, for example? How does it deal with high temperatures? How does it deal with finding habitat or mates, for example, or mates, all those things? Okay, good. So the theme and the word we've been talking about in this class, and this may appear in your quiz, so make sure you remember this. The theme of ecology is interconnectedness, and I've been talking about interactions and interdependence and interconnections all this time because that's the theme of ecology. We want to see how all of these different parts work together to create the entire ecosystem that you see. So, or we don't look, never ever. We're going to do that later once we are in genetics and all in cells and cell function. Right now in ecology, we're not looking at individual organisms or isolated organisms. We're looking at the interactions between all of them. So all organisms interact with other organisms in their surrounding and with the non-living factors or portions of their environment. And the survival of the organisms depend on these interactions. Why? Because if they don't have shelter, they're probably going to die. If they don't have food, they're going to die. They're going to starve. If they don't have water, they're going to be dehydrated and they'll probably have zero energy to get their prey and die. So you see it's the survival of those organisms and how they depend on the interactions. So there is interconnectedness in each ecosystem. They are linked to other organisms and other non-living things. In this case, when we're looking at this picture, what are some of the things the deer relies on for survival? What things does it rely on for survival? But like, how do you see interdependence? They are dependent on other things to survive. How do you see interdependence? Carly, do you get the link? Okay. Plants, yeah, they depend on plants. Because they eat plants, right? What else? They need mates to continue their population, like the next generation. They need mates. If they don't have mates, their population is going extinct, which is what happens with some species. Okay, so today I'm gonna ask you, where's mine? I'm going to ask you, we're not going to do this in VR, but this is your in-class activity, and you're going to show me. You can do two things. You can just show me in the camera, or you can take a picture and put it in the chat. You're going to, instead of doing this in VR, you're going to create an entire, well, not the biosphere, but an ecosystem, and you're going to identify the interactions and the interdependence in this entire ecosystem. Okay, so I'm gonna give you now some time, and I'm gonna share a timer here. 10 minutes, 10 minutes. And you're going to create an ecosystem, you're going to draw it, and you're going to identify the interdependence of all those organisms. For example, when you create your ecosystem, let's say you're doing a fish, you can say the fish depends on the oxygen that water provides. It also depends, say it's a fish that eats algae, it depends on algae for food. It depends, and then you can draw other fish of the same species. It depends on other fish for reproduction. Okay, so you're going to take, and remember at the beginning of class, I sent out a letter saying that you needed to have a science notebook just for biology. I mean, yeah, for biology, because we were going to do things like this, and because you have notebook activities you're going to be doing. So you're going to open that notebook, and you're going to create an ecosystem and tell me what are those interactions that you think exist and the interdependence you see in your ecosystem. That means your ecosystem should include populations, communities, and non-living things. Okay, so I'm going to share this timer that may help you know how much time you have left. And before we leave, you need to make sure you send the picture here in the chat, or you show me so I can write it down and you can get those points for today. Um, I'm confused. Okay. Um, okay, so yeah, we spent too much time on that. So let's do this. Just draw it and label it with the different interactions, and you're going to show me tomorrow at the very beginning of the class before we go in VR. We're gonna try VR tomorrow again, and see if we can handle it, okay? So Sean, you have time, okay? You have until tomorrow morning to draw it and put the labels on it. And you're gonna show it to me. That will be your grade, your in-class grade for today. Okay. Well, okay, everybody, let me double check who's here for attendance really quick. Okay, awesome. Well, everybody, I have my attendance ready, so I'll see you tomorrow, okay?
Is there a way to find these slides on Engage?
No, because it's a big file. That's why you had to follow Nalu. If the other option is just visiting my office hours today and double check, like I can share my screen and you can look at it, but it's like has a lot of slides. That's like 200 slides, so I can upload it.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, if you miss one section, one part, one slide, come see me during office hours. I can pull it up quickly and show you so you can complete your notes, okay? See you tomorrow, everybody.